before 8 p.m. on February 9, 2018, high in the northeastern mountains of South Korea, Sang Jin-oh was sitting on a plastic chair a few dozen rows up from the floor of Pyeongchang's vast pentagonal Olympic Stadium. He wore a grey and red official Olympics jacket that kept him warm despite the near-freezing weather, and his seat, behind the press section, had a clear view of the raised circular stage a few hundred feet in front of him. The 2018 Winter Olympics opening ceremony was about to start. As the lights darkened around the roofless structure, anticipation buzzed through the 35,000-person crowd, the glow on their phone screens floating like fireflies around the stadium. Few felt that anticipation more intensely than awe. For more than 3 years, the 47-year-old civil servant had been Director of Technology for the Pyeongchang's Olympic Organizing Committee. He'd overseen the setup of an IT infrastructure for the Games, comprising more than 10,000 PCs, more than 20,000 mobile devices, 6,300 Wi-Fi routers, and 300 servers in 2 Seoul data centers. That immense collection of machines seemed to be functioning perfectly, just almost. Half an hour earlier, he'd gotten word about a nagging technical issue. The source of that problem was a contractor, an IT firm from which the Olympics were renting another 100 servers. The contractor's glitches had been a long-term headache. Oh's response had been annoyance. Even now, with the entire world watching, the company was still working out its bugs. The data centers in Seoul, however, weren't reporting any such problems, and Oh's team believed that the issues with the contractor were manageable. He didn't yet know that they were already preventing some attendees from printing tickets that would let them enter the stadium. So he'd settled in his seat, ready to watch a highlight of his career unfold. "10 seconds before 8 p.m., numbers began to form one by one in projected light around the stage as a choir of children's voices counted down in Korean to the start of Sip, Gu, Pal, Chill. In the middle of the countdown, Oh's Samsung Galaxy Note 8 phone abruptly lit up. He looked down to see a message from a subordinate on Kakao Talk, a popular Korean messaging app. The message shared perhaps the worst news possible or could have received at that exact moment. Something was shutting down every domain controller in the Seoul data centers, the servers that formed the backbone of the Olympics IT infrastructure. As the opening ceremony got underway, thousands of fireworks exploded around the stadium on cue, and dozens of massive puppets and Korean dancers entered the stage. Oh saw none of it. He was texting furiously with his staff as they watched their entire IT setup go dark. He quickly realized that what the partner company had reported wasn't a mere glitch. It had been the first sign of an unfolding attack. He needed to get to his technology operations center. As Oh made his way out of the press section towards the exit, reporters around him had already begun complaining that the Wi-Fi seemed to have suddenly stopped working. Thousands of internet-linked TVs showing the ceremony around the stadium and in 12 other Olympic facilities had gone black. Every RFID-based security gate leading into every Olympic building was down. The Olympics official app, including its digital ticketing function, was broken too. When it reached out for data from backend servers, they suddenly had none to offer. The Pyeongchang Organizing Committee had prepared for this. Its cybersecurity advisory group had met 20 times since 2015. They had conducted drills as early as the summer of the previous year, simulating disasters like cyber attacks, fires, and earthquakes. But now that one of those nightmare scenarios was playing out in reality, the feeling for awe was both infuriating and surreal. It's actually happened, O thought, as if to shake himself out of the sense that it was all a bad dream. Once O had made his way through the crowd, he ran to the stadium's exit, out into the cold night air and across the parking lot, now joined by 2 other IT staffers. They jumped into a Hyundai SUV and began the 45-minute drive east, down through the mountains to the coastal city of Gangnam, where the Olympics Technology Operations Center was located. From the car, O called staffers at the stadium and told them to start distributing Wi-Fi hotspots to reporters and to tell security to check badges manually because all RFID systems were down. But that was the least of their worries. O knew that in just over 2 hours, the opening ceremony would end, and tens of thousands of athletes, visiting dignitaries, and spectators will find that they had no Wi-Fi connections and no access to the Olympics app, which was full of schedules, hotel information, and maps. The result would be a humiliating confusion. If they couldn't recover the servers by the next morning, the entire IT backend of the organizing committee, which was responsible for everything from meals to hotel reservations to event ticketing, will remain offline as the actual games got underway. And a kind of technological fiasco that had never before struck the Olympics would unfold in one of the world's most wired countries. O arrived at the Technology Operations Center in Gangnam by 9 p.m., halfway into the opening ceremony. The center consisted of a large open room with desks and computers for 150 staffers. One wall was covered with screens. When he walked in, many of those staffers were standing, clamped together, anxiously discussing how to respond to the attack, a problem compounded by the fact that they had been locked out of many of their own basic services like email and messaging. All 9 of the Olympic staff domain controllers, the powerful machines that governed which employee could access which computer in the network, had somehow been paralyzed, crippling the entire system. The staff decided on a temporary workaround. They set all the surviving servers that powered some basic services such as Wi-Fi and the internet-linked TVs to bypass the dead gatekeepers' machines. By doing so, they managed to bring those bare minimum systems back online just minutes before the end of the ceremony. Over the next 2 hours, as they attempted to rebuild the domain controllers to recreate a more long-term secure network, the engineers will again and again find that the servers have been crippled. Some malicious presence in their systems remained, disrupting the machines faster than they could be rebuilt. O and his staff worked frantically to rebuild the Olympics' digital nervous system. A few minutes before midnight, O and his administrators reluctantly decided on a desperate measure. They will cut off the entire network from the internet in an attempt to isolate it from the saboteurs, who they figured must still have maintained a presence inside. That meant taking down every service, even the Olympics public website, while they worked to root out whatever malware infection was tearing apart their machines from within. For the rest of the night, O and his staff worked frantically to rebuild the Olympics' digital nervous system. By 5 a.m., a Korean security contractor, Anlab, had managed to create an antivirus signature that could help all staff vaccinate the network's thousands of PCs and servers against the mysterious malware that had infected them, a malicious file that O says was named simply winlogon.exe. At 6:30 a.m., the Olympics administrators reset staffers' passwords in hopes of locking out whatever means of access the hackers might have stolen. Just before 8 that morning, almost exactly 12 hours after the cyber attack on the Olympics had begun, O and the sleepless staffers finished reconstructing their servers from backups and began restarting every service. Amazingly, it worked. The day's skating and ski jumping events went off with little more than a few Wi-Fi hiccups. R2-D2 style robots pattered around Olympic venues, vacuuming floors, delivering water bottles, and projecting weather reports. A Boston Globe reporter later called the games impeccably organized. One USA Today columnist wrote that it's possible no Olympic Games have ever had so many moving pieces, all run on time. Thousands of athletes and millions of spectators remained blissfully unaware that the Olympic staff had spent its first night fighting off an invisible enemy that had threatened to throw the entire event into chaos.